Welcome! Tonight we will step quietly into the turning rhythm of medieval life, guided by the sound of creaking wooden wheels and the slow rush of water along a channel. Our subject is the world of the medieval mill, a place at once humble and essential, where grain became flour. Flour sustained entire communities. The story of the mill is not only about machines and stone, but about people. Men and women who labored at the grindstones, peasants who carried their harvests on aching shoulders, and lords who reaped wealth from what seemed to them a simple stream of grain. So settle back. Allow the steady turning of the mill wheel to become your backdrop. Imagine the rhythm of the medieval countryside, slow, persistent, and deeply human. Imagine yourself in a small valley where a stream has been carefully redirected into a wooden channel. The air is cool and damp, heavy with the scent of wet earth and timber. At the heart of this scene stands a watermill, its great wheel turning slowly, fed by the constant pressure of flowing water. Each creak of the timbers, each splash of falling droplets, marks the steady pulse of life in this medieval village. You are a mill worker rising early with the dawn. The day begins not with silence, but with sound, the low rush of water, the clatter of wooden gears, the grinding tone of millstones as they touch. The stones must be checked, adjusted, and maintained constantly. For a misaligned millstone could shatter grain unevenly, or worse, break altogether. Your hands are rough from lifting sacks of wheat and rye. Each sack is heavy, carried across your back and shoulders into the dim interior of the mill. Inside, the air is thick with flour dust, soft yet choking, coating skin and hair. There is a faint sweetness to it, mingled with the smell of worn oak beams and damp straw scattered underfoot. The work is not glamorous, but it is constant. Grain must be poured slowly into the hopper, feeding the stones at the right pace. Too much, and the stones will clog. Too little, and the rhythm will falter. You listen closely not for words, but for changes in sound. The pitch of the grinding tells you if the stones are sharp or dull, if the grain is feeding smoothly, or if something has gone wrong deep in the turning mechanism. From time to time, repairs are needed. The water wheel's paddles can split from pressure. Wooden cogs wear down, demanding replacement. You carry tools and wedges, working carefully in damp crevices, your clothing catching splinters and stains of tar and grease. Slow labor, but necessary. For the entire village depends on the steady movement of these machines. Meals are simple: crust of bread, sometimes an onion or a bit of cheese, eaten while sitting on a stone by the mill race. The sound of the wheel continues while you chew, always reminding you that the mill does not rest. The day stretches long, from early morning until the fading light, yet the rhythm is not without its comforts. The turning wheel provides a constant song, one you grow accustomed to, steady and reassuring. At times you pause to gaze out at the fields beyond, watching farmers work in silence while the water keeps moving, as though nature itself is turning grain into sustenance. And when evening comes, the sacks are emptied, the stones left to still, and the mill house grows quiet at last. You return home weary, your hair and clothes powdered with flour, your arms aching, but knowing that tomorrow, the wheel will turn again, and your work will resume. Let us move now from the lived world of the miller to the written world of record-keeping. The year 1086, under the command of William the Conqueror, a remarkable survey was compiled, the Domesday Book. Its purpose was straightforward, though ambitious, to record the wealth of England, so that taxation could be precise and no detail overlooked. Among the many entries describing fields, villages, and households, there are thousands that mention mills. Nearly 6,000 are noted, scattered across the land. For William, each mill was not simply a building with a wheel, but a source of revenue. A mill was valued in shillings, tied to its output and the rents it generated. The record is dry, a list of figures and names, yet it offers a rare glimpse into the economic heart of the medieval countryside. A single mill might be worth more than many acres of farmland. Some villages had several, others none at all. Where mills are missing, we can imagine peasants grinding grain by hand, a time-consuming and exhausting task. Where they appear, we know that the water wheel was at work, turning not just grain, but the very rhythm of daily survival. The Domesday Book also hints at conflict. Mills were tightly controlled, often by the lord of the manor. Peasants were required to bring their grain to the lord's mill, paying in flour or coin for the privilege. Secret hand mills were discouraged, even forbidden, for they bypassed this income. Thus, the steady turn of the water wheel was not only mechanical, but political, binding the labor of villagers to the authority of their lord. As we read these records today, the mills of the Domesday Book are silent, yet in their numbers and values, we hear faint echoes of water splashing, stones grinding, and millers balancing sacks of grain. The survey reminds us that each entry represented not just property, but a living community whose bread depended on this hidden machinery. Centuries passed and many mills fell into disuse. Some were abandoned as rivers changed course, their wheels left to rot beside empty channels. Others were dismantled, their stones reused in farm walls, their beams repurposed for barns. Time, as always, transformed the landscape. Yet the traces remain. Along riverbanks across Europe, archaeologists and walkers alike still stumble upon hints of these lost mills. A line of stones across a stream might once have anchored a weir. A hollow in the earth may have been the mill race, long since silted up and hidden beneath grass. In ruins, fragments of great millstones are sometimes found, their circular shapes half buried in moss, silent reminders of the hands that once tended them. In some cases, wooden remains are discovered preserved by waterlogged soil. Darkened timbers, still bearing the marks of tools, reveal how water wheels were constructed with care. Even fragments of gears or paddles can survive, giving us quiet evidence of craftsmanship long forgotten. And sometimes villages preserve the memory in names. A lane called Mill Street or a hamlet called Mill End tells us that once, long ago, the sound of grinding stones and splashing water filled the air there. These names, like the stones in the river, are small but persistent traces of a world where mills were central. In contemplating these forgotten places, one might imagine the sound returning, the wheel turning once more, the grain poured into the hopper, the rhythm of life briefly restored. The ruins, though silent, speak of continuity, of the way human need for bread shaped the landscape in ways still visible if one looks closely. Finally, let us consider the contrast between those who labored in the mill and those who benefited from it. For the peasant, the mill was both a necessity and a burden. To make bread, they had no choice but to bring their harvest to the Lord's mill. The fee, whether in flour or coin, was unavoidable. To resist was to risk punishment. The sight of the mill, therefore, could carry both relief, the promise of sustenance, and resentment, as it reminded them of obligations that never ceased. For the Lord, however, the mill was a source of quiet wealth. It produced nothing directly for his table, but it guaranteed a steady stream of income. Long as water flowed and grain was harvested, the mill produced profit. Nobles dining in their halls rarely thought of the dust-covered miller or the peasants who carried sacks upon their shoulders. Their bread arrived white and soft, unmarked by the sweat that ground it. This contrast between above and below, between the hall and the mill house, captures something essential about medieval society. Power rested on labor, but labor was often invisible. The creak of the water wheel, the grind of the stones, the back-breaking effort of carrying and tending all of it disappeared into the smooth crust of bread placed upon the table of the wealthy, and yet without the mill, the hall itself could not have been sustained. The rhythm of the wheel, unnoticed by nobles, was in truth one of the hidden heartbeats of medieval life. As we step back from the mill, we leave behind the sound of rushing water and the soft dust of flour hanging in the air. We have walked through the daily labor of millers, glimpsed the cold precision of the Domesday Book, traced forgotten ruins where wheels once turned, and contrasted the lives of peasants with the wealth of lords. The mill is both humble and powerful. It was the servant of every villager and the servant of every lord, binding together the fields, the rivers, and the tables of medieval society. Now, as you rest, imagine once more the slow turning of the water wheel, steady and calm. Its rhythm continues in your mind, easing you into quiet. The past is distant, the present is comfortable, and the steady song of history can lull you into sleep.